Donald Trump, the magnate who became president, is a figure that divides the world like few others. Imagine a man who has spent his entire life surrounded by opulence, power, and controversies. From the gleaming skyscrapers bearing his name to the scandals that marked his time in the White House, Trump is not just a president, he has always lived under the spotlight and amidst countless accusations. But behind the image of a successful businessman and audacious politician lies a labyrinth of secrets, scandals, and decisions that left indelible marks. This is the price of success for the most recent elected president of the United States. Today, we'll take you beyond his speeches, beyond appearances, to reveal an untold truth. The origins of unbridled ambition. Born in 1946 in Queens, New York, Donald Trump grew up in a world of privilege with a father, Fred Trump, who amassed a fortune in real estate. His first scandal emerged in the 1970s when his company, the Trump Organization, was sued for racial discrimination in renting out properties. During this time, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against the company, accusing it of racial discrimination in apartment rentals. According to the investigation, Trump employees would mark rental applications from African American applicants with a C for colored to automatically reject them, ensuring the properties remained predominantly white. Although Trump denied it, the evidence was overwhelming. African American tenants were systematically turned away. Former employees testified that they had been explicitly instructed not to rent to black people, and internal documents confirmed these practices. From the start, it became clear that for Donald Trump, image would always matter more than truth, and power would outweigh ethics. The rise of the real estate empire. In the 1980s, Trump became a New York icon, erecting towering skyscrapers and casinos in Atlantic City. But as he built his empire, he also accumulated enemies. He was accused of failing to pay contractors, exploiting immigrant workers, and conducting business with alleged ties to organized crime. How did he survive? The right connections at the right time saved his empire. Under the bright lights of Las Vegas and Atlantic City, Trump faced multiple bankruptcies. By the 1990s, his casinos were losing millions, and banks nearly abandoned him. Yet, somehow, he convinced them to refinance his debts. Was it luck, charisma, or something darker? What is certain is that his ability to weather crises turned him into an almost indestructible figure. One of the most unsettling stories was his relationship with key mafia figures. The name Anthony "Fat Tony" Salerno, one of the most notorious bosses of the Genovese family, frequently surfaced in connection to Trump Organization projects. Fat Tony ensured an uninterrupted supply of concrete in exchange for favors and exclusive contracts. But that wasn't all. Trump's casinos in Atlantic City, symbols of luxury and decadence, were also alleged to have been potential money laundering hubs for criminal organizations. Behind the scenes, testimonies from former employees and collaborators painted a different picture: an authoritarian, sexist, and volatile boss. In private interviews, former employees described working for Trump as being trapped in a constant atmosphere of fear. Not only did he demand exceptional results, but he also emotionally pressured his employees, leaving no room for autonomy or creativity. Moreover, misogyny was so palpable that several employees stated women in the company were often valued more for their physical attractiveness than for their professional skills. The accusations of abuse and sex scandals. One of the darkest parts of his story is the multiple accusations against him, which went far beyond vulgar comments or disrespectful attitudes, taking on a much more sinister shape. far too many accusations of sexual abuse. Since the 1980s, several women have come forward with disturbing accounts of encounters with Trump. Although he has always denied these allegations, the infamous Access Hollywood tape leaked in 2016 left little to the imagination. In it, Trump could be heard jokingly bragging about inappropriate behavior, claiming he could do whatever he wanted with women because of his fame and power. The infamous comment, "Grab them by the pussy," which many interpreted as a threat of sexual assault, became one of the most shameful phrases of his career. Trump tried to downplay the scandal, claiming it was just a private conversation, but the damage was done. Public outrage was unstoppable, and accusations began to pile up. In 2016, before the presidential elections, more than 20 women accused Trump of harassment and sexual abuse while he continued his campaign. Some of these women claimed that in his youth, the magnate had abused them, while others reported Trump's behavior at public and private events. The narrative was clear. Trump was not just a figure of power, but also a man who used his status to impose his will on women. But the most sinister aspect of all this wasn't just the number of accusations, but how they were handled. Backed by his network of lawyers and powerful allies, Trump countered each accusation with aggressive smear campaigns. His tactic was simple. If someone accused him, he discredited them, minimized their claims, and in some cases, even had his accusers publicly retract their statements. As if that weren't enough, rumors also emerged about how he treated his ex-wives. Ivana Trump, his first wife, once accused Trump of sexual assault in her book, describing an episode in which he allegedly forced her into sexual relations. Although this statement was removed in a later version of the book, the damage was already done. The controversy of his presidency. Donald Trump's election in 2016 was not only an unexpected turn of events, but also the beginning of one of the most controversial presidencies in United States history. His immigration policy, the separation of families at the border, and the widespread chaos within his administration made him a president loved by some and hated by many. His relationship with Vladimir Putin and his constant incendiary tweets only fueled the fire. These events were tied to his approach to international politics. Trump not only manipulated the media and public opinion to his benefit, but also recklessly played with international diplomacy. His relationship with authoritarian figures like Vladimir Putin was puzzling to many international observers. Trump seemed willing to ignore Russia's threats and downplay its interference in Western democracies. A behavior perceived as aligning with Putin's interests. What few knew was that this relationship was not just a diplomatic game, but also concealed a complex web of interests and conspiracies that could have had far more serious consequences than most imagined. As tensions between the United States and Russia escalated, the clash of global interests, combined with internal political instability, began to sow the seeds of what many feared: a third world war. In his quest for absolute power, Trump crossed ethical, legal, and moral boundaries, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The COVID pandemic was a scandal, as his handling of the crisis was chaotic, with erratic statements, a lack of coherent federal action, and disdain for the recommendations of public health experts. While thousands of Americans died from the virus, Trump remained focused on his public image and the upcoming elections, even suggesting unproven treatments like chloroquine. Some claimed that Trump and his administration knew about the magnitude of the crisis long before the situation became critical, but chose to downplay it for political and economic reasons. In this context, the lives of millions became mere pawns in his game of power and control. The January 6th Capitol attack, another dark chapter of his political career, unfolded on January 6, 2021, when a mob of his supporters stormed the Capitol. His words before the attack were seen by many as a call to action. This event marked a turning point in his legacy. Even after leaving the White House, the shadows did not leave Trump. His businesses have been investigated for alleged fraud, tax evasion, and irregular handling of funds. From New York to Florida, the lawsuits seem endless. The re-emergence in an unexpected twist, Donald Trump, the man who seemed to have been defeated by time, controversy, and legal crises, returned in 2024 to pursue what many considered an impossible comeback, the presidency of the United States. But his rise was not simply a victory at the polls. It was the result of a Machiavellian game of dark political maneuvers, mass manipulation, and the resurgence of a system that had never entirely abandoned him. While traditional media condemned him, his message resonated deeply in the dark corners of the internet, where radical groups and far-right movements rallied to his cause. As the elections approached, unsettling rumors about the electoral process began to surface, prompting many to wonder if the outcome was already predetermined. Allegations of electoral fraud, vote tampering, and gerrymandering spread rapidly. Trump capitalized on this fertile ground to sow distrust in the democratic system. Additionally, figures from the mafia, those tied to his real estate empire in the 1980s, began to re-emerge in the murky shadows of politics. Many saw him as a figure capable of manipulating the system from within to serve the interests of those operating outside the law. Trump became a kind of messianic figure for those yearning for a world where power, money, and corruption operated in the shadows. When the polls closed, the result was clear. Trump had won not with an overwhelming popular vote, but with the precision of a strategist who knew how to manipulate every piece of the political chessboard. In his victory, many saw not just the return of a man, but the resurgence of a system thriving on darkness, deceit, and absolute control. It was a shadow game where truth blurred and lies intertwined with reality. Trump, who had previously contested the 2020 election results, insisted that the 2024 election would also be manipulated by the corrupt forces that had ousted him before. Trump's return wasn't just as a man, it was as an unstoppable force. His rise to power echoed corruption, crime, and disinformation, once again reverberating through the Capitol's walls, leaving no doubt that the real battle was never for the presidency, but for the control of the narrative. In the dark pages of history, some will mention Donald Trump as the man who, unwittingly, sparked the flame that brought the world to the brink of the abyss. Trump has been called many things: magnate, showman, president. But he has also been described as the man who challenges morality to get what he wants. Perhaps his story is not just about power and controversies, but about the price of success. What do you think? Is Trump a misunderstood genius or simply the master of shadows? You decide. Leave your answer in the comments. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to learn about the price of success for those who seem untouchable.